I'm on mute. Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. Rowena Winkler here. I hope you enjoyed that sexy, sultry. Oh my gosh, my communication is not up to snuff today, but that's fine because I'm going to reference Mercury retrograde today in this masterclass on passion and partnership and how we can use astrology to learn more about our love lives, our sex lives, our partnerships, our relationships because as y'all know, astrology is a fabulous tool for us to gain insight. Again, astrology is not predictive, right? So if we find something in our chart or in our partner's charts where it may not necessarily align, it doesn't mean it's game over. It's just another way for us to tap into how can we work on this particular challenge? How can we enhance our truly authentic selves and show up in our partnerships, in our relationships, and in our love lives as ourselves so that we can receive the love that we deserve as our true selves. So, with that said, I am so excited that I will not be having this conversation alone today. I have one of my beautiful, wonderful, amazing former clients that we worked together just when I was starting out this business about 2 years ago. The beautiful Erica Miller is here today. And here she is. Hi, Erica. How are you?
Hi, Rowena. Thanks so much for inviting me to do this with you.
I am really excited to have this conversation. And you know what it was, Erica? Your Valentine's Day post is what prompted me to reach out to you.
I thought maybe it was.
Yeah, the timing was just like, oh, I saw this. Let me just message Erica. Yeah, she just posted this beautiful Instagram post on what a gift, a lovely gift that her husband gave her. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful relationship. I'm gonna have Erica come on to this class today.
Yeah, and I did think like a lot of people always comment about how like my husband and I are like very opposite, and like the fact that we get along so well is somewhat surprising to people. So I thought this will be so fun. Maybe Rowena will help us understand why we're so, like, we say we're soulmates, but
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
help me understand why.
Yeah, no, I definitely will help you understand why. And I think there are some things in your charts because I pulled up their charts, so I have their information. There are some things in there that I feel will give us some more insight on perhaps you are different, but why y'all just get along so well and how it works out in your partnership. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, I want to just quickly share, and Erica, if you want a chance to share as well in terms of your relationship. For me, when it comes to my current marriage, my relationship with my husband Derek, what's the why story in terms of how astrology and my relationship came together? The first time I really started tapping into astrology as a tool on my relationships in particular was back in 2014. It was 2014. No, 2014? No, 2015. I lied. 2015. I am working as a tenure track professor at Virginia Commonwealth University. And this was, I didn't know at the time, about a month or so before I was going to get engaged. My engagement was a total surprise. I had no idea. And Derek and I were just having such horrible communication problems, like miscommunication. At the time, we were still doing long distance. He was in Maryland, I was in Virginia, and we were not on the same page. And it was really frustrating and really sad because, as you know, I think Derek and I have pretty good open communication, but something just wasn't right. And I remember sitting in my office at VCU on Snapchat, and a Snapchat story came up about Mercury retrograde. What's funny is back then, gosh, it would be what now, almost 10 years ago, I didn't know too much about retrograde, which y'all know I talk very much about retrograde, which is so funny. But back then, I didn't know what the hell Mercury retrograde was. So I'm reading it and it says miscommunication and all this stuff. And it felt very relevant to my life in the moment. I walk into my friend Lauren's office, who she was one of the first people that got me into astrology at VCU. And I said, "Is this the reason why Derek and I?" And she said, "Oh, girl, sit down." We had a conversation about retrograde. And that was just one of the first moments where I learned how astrology can give insight on my life and my love life. And lo and behold, weeks later, Derek proposes. And I remember him even saying, like, I know that we've had some miscommunication issues lately or whatever. I don't know how he said it exactly, but he said, but I love you and I know we'll work it out and I want to marry you. And it was like so beautiful and lovely. And I was like, so that's my story. I know that we talked about this before hopping live, Erica. I think your husband and my husband are similar where they're like, nah, astrology. Like,
Yeah.
like you do you, babe. But are there any stories similarly where maybe on your end you notice something happening and then you realize, oh, it's Mercury retrograde or something of that
Well,
effect?
that kind of stuff, it really only happened after I started working with you. So like it's new to me. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
maybe
for sure.
2 years or whatever, where I like honestly, like from your newsletters where you put out like your points of like the times of the month that certain things might be happening. Like honestly, like I it makes me feel so much better. And I do feel like I understand stuff more, and I feel like I can kind of like be prepared for that kind of stuff. And it also
Yeah.
sort of gives me like, yeah, like it gives me comfort that like it'll pass or
Yes.
whatever, right? Instead of being like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, like things aren't
Right.
going very well, or we're not communicating, or I don't, feel good. And then like, I'm like, all right, well, let's see what Rowena says about it. But okay, but here is the thing that is similar. Have we never talked about this? I had the exact same thing before Ian proposed to me. I
Oh,
thought we were going to
no.
break up. I thought we were
No.
terrible. But so my husband says it was because he did that on purpose because he wanted to make sure he was trying not to let on. That's what he says. But
Oh.
who
Oh, so
knows?
he was picking a fight with you?
Well, he just like wasn't being like so like touchy feely because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
said
yeah,
like he
lovey-dovey.
wanted to make sure that like that moment like was really surprising, and it definitely was.
Yeah, yeah, that is so
um
funny.
but yeah, definitely. And like yeah, I was telling you before we went live that I read a horoscope that was put out by another company, but it like
Oh,
touched on that too. And like it said things about how like, relationship wise, like things might get a little rocky for me in the summer, like the summer months, and look out for that. And I'm like, I'm totally here for it. And
Yeah.
even if like my husband isn't like totally on board, at least I am getting the insight and,
Yeah.
can sort of plan ahead.
Right, right. No, for sure. And again, as I've said, astrology just liken it to weather reports or weather patterns, right? It doesn't mean that you're doomed this summer or whatever. It's just yeah, you're planning, right? You're planning. So if something comes up, then you know that it was on the horizon and then you could work on it and move forward from there. So, yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's so funny that we both had these weird rough patches before our engagements, but look at us now, we're good.
Yeah, but did we get engaged around like the same time? When
I
did
think
you
we
say yours
did. I
was?
think
Yeah, mine was he proposed on Valentine's Day, which was also a surprise that he said he did
yeah.
it on purpose. And I think it was Valentine's Day 2014 or
Okay, so you're
2013.
a year before me because I messed up. We started dating in 2014 and got engaged in 2015, so you're a year ahead
Oh,
of us
okay.
in terms of that, but also February, so very similar in that regard.
Weird. That's so weird, Rowena. I can't believe we never
I
connected on
know.
that
Well, it's a
before.
good thing we're here then.
Yeah.
All right, so today when we talk about astrology and relationships, there are 3 areas that we're gonna touch upon today, and we're gonna talk through, your chart, Ian's chart, and I also share some of my experiences as well. I guess I could have pulled up my husband's chart. Maybe I should do that too on the fly. But let's just get started. So the first planet and the first planetary um, placement that we're going to look at on your charts is Venus. And for those of you that know, Venus is the goddess of love. Venus is the planet that represents love and relationships. And so by knowing where Venus is in our astrological chart, we can get a sense of how we want to give and receive love, how to approach romantic relationships. So it's a really helpful planetary placement in our charts to give us that information. And so what's interesting is looking at Erica and Ian's charts, both of y'all have Venus placements in water signs. Now, mind you, they're in different water signs, but I think it's interesting that your love, element is water. So, Erica, your Venus placement is in Pisces. And as we chatted about before going live, I'm a very proud Pisces sun. We're getting into Pisces season, tomorrow? So, very dear to my heart, and maybe that's why we're such really good friends. But do you feel that in your relationships, do you feel that you have empathic tendencies? Like, can you intuit when your partner is feeling a certain way, or, do you feel very connected
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
deeply?
Yeah, that's how I knew that like he was like a different like that's how I knew that he was like the one or whatever cuz we did start out with a really long distance relationship, but
Mm,
I don't know how else to describe it. Like I could feel him. Like I felt like I could
yeah,
like feel him like in my heart all the time, and I did. I felt like I always had like a little bit of a sense of like even though we weren't even in the same state, I felt like I could
yeah,
sense what was going on with him, and I that is a interesting way to like just and because I feel that same way like with my family members who I
yeah,
love. Like, how sometimes like people call and they tell you something and you're like, I knew it. Like I just
yeah,
had a feeling.
yeah.
I just like, yeah,
Well, that's
that's
yeah, well, that's very
fascinating.
telling of your placement that when you are in relationship with people, when you love people, when you care very deeply for people, you can feel there's an empathic quality to your relationships and to your love. Ian, his Venus placement is in Scorpio, which is also a water sign, but a different flavor, a brand. Scorpios are very deep and very intense.
Uh-huh.
So when you started dating, did y'all like how quickly did
Oh
y'all,
my gosh. It was like yeah, intense is like especially like with yeah, with Ian. Like that is
yeah,
yes, that is the one of the best ways to describe him. Like he's very should I tell the story? Like, okay, I'll tell like the like basic of the story. So like when we first met like in the area where like we both grew up or whatever. But
sure.
I was gonna go visit my sister who lives in Australia, and I was
Right.
gone for like 2.5 months. Okay. So I
Wow.
finally come back, and Ian wanted to go on a date with me like right away, which was great, right? And then like I used to just describe him as like everything's very black and white, kind of like that's his intensity. So like we went out on like a hike, which I thought was really great because I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, finally someone who's
I
not
love
just
that.
taking me like to dinner or whatever. We went and did an activity. It was really fun. And then we got in the car and we were gonna go back to like his parents' house because we were both from that area. So he was like,
Sure.
I really want to take you back to my house to meet my parents, but I don't want to do it unless you're my girlfriend. So either you're my girlfriend and the date is over, or you're all my girlfriend and we continue, or you're not my girlfriend and the date is over. Like that's
Wow.
how I tell the story, but like it wasn't, that's a little bit exaggerated,
Sure, sure, but
it,
yeah, he
but
was here for
yes,
it. He was ready.
yes. And that's sort of how things were, I feel like, you know, and like that was also telling because Ian is so intense, like the fact
Mhm.
that he was always very sure of his decisions
Yeah,
when it came to him and I, like he, you know, that was really telling to me, you know, that he's like,
yeah,
it's either we're together or,
that's
you
it.
know, we're not or whatever.
Yeah, meanwhile, I mentioned before the live that my Venus is in Aries, so I'm a fiery, lovey gal who, I mean, I feel like at this point, Derek is the longest committed relationship. Homegirl over here has been bopping around for years, who like didn't want to settle down, was always in love with a new person. So I think that's really fascinating. Actually, that story about Ian reminds me of another friend who's a Scorpio. Same thing. Like these young men, these young Scorpio men are like, okay, I want to be committed to you. Let's go. Like, are you here for it on the first date?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's, there's nothing wrong with that. It worked out for you guys.
Well, yeah, because in my mind, I was like, okay, fine. Like, I can just like break up with him later. You know, I was like, what? To me, I was like, it's not like
Yeah,
we were like,
not that serious.
we weren't committing to anything that was like, you know, permanent or whatever. But I did like, even though we barely knew each other, like, I had that feeling. And then,
Yeah,
yes, like, we, as soon as possible, like, started living together. I think it was like less than a year. We started living together. And then it was
yeah,
like, probably another year after that we were engaged, and
yeah,
then we were engaged for like 9 months or whatever, and then we got married, and then we had a house, and then we're having kids, and then
yeah,
you know what I mean, it's
yeah.
like it has been very fast. Oh yeah, we got a dog like the weekend after we started living together, you know it, but
You
that
know?
is it's
Yeah. Hey, you know what? It's better do it that way, I think. Sometimes I've seen, I mean, myself included, I was in a relationship where it kind of dragged out probably longer than it needed to. So y'all were getting to it. As we were chatting here, I did end up pulling up Derek's chart. Derek is my husband. Because I think this would be just interesting intel for this conversation. So my husband, his Venus placement is in Cancer, which is another water sign. We're all surrounded by water sign Venus placements, and then your fire girl over here, but very much on track. I mean, my husband well. Cancer is sensitive, emotional, like a very
oh,
nurturing. It's very true. Like Derek is so sweet. Like very focused on the home and children. I know we're going to talk about this later with Ian as well. Like very yeah, just a very nurturing energy, very fond of children. I mean, he's a fabulous parent. We're expecting, if you don't know out there folks, we're expecting our second. So, yeah, this is very much on brand for my husband.
yeah. Yeah, but I feel like that like works because he's like he's like keeping your fire going, you know?
Yeah.
He's there to help it.
Yeah, he grounds me for sure. I mean, he I think my mother is very pleased that a nice man like Derek was able to finally pin me down cuz a little boy crazy for a bit and kind of especially when I was younger. So, yeah, very much in alignment to what is happening here. Cool. Oh, and I actually meant to mention this. Ian's speaking of Derek and home and stuff, Ian's Venus placement is in the fourth house in his chart, which is the house of home and
Oh,
family. And yeah, and knowing your husband, I know that's very true for him. And we'll talk about this with the seventh house placement as well. But yeah, very home oriented, family, children, fertility, that kind of
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just funny though, because I feel like he never like he didn't that wasn't apparent in his life. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know him for a very long time before we
Sure,
like got together and whatever, but like he used to be like wild. Like can you have like a different house and then you move to another one? Cuz I feel like younger Ian, like
sure.
20s, like early 20s Ian was like a completely different person from what I've heard.
It's interesting because his and we'll talk about this next, his Mars, which is that fire, passion, energy, it's in Pisces, which can be kind of like a going around, kind of bopping from place to place. So we'll definitely talk about that. So, yeah, and I mean as with everyone, we're humans and we evolve and we change and we mature and I'm sure, we can get a little bit deeper into some aspects of Ian's chart, but he's a Leo rising. His ascendant is Leo. So it's a very performative fiery sign. So maybe that's also tempered a bit as as he's become a dad and whatnot. But yeah, yeah, for sure. And his, let's see, as I said, is more. I'm trying to see if there's anything that might speak to that as well. Um, but yeah, he has a pretty good amount of fire in his chart, so that might be where that has come from. So as I mentioned, Mars represents passion. It's the planet of passion, aggression. It's a very masculine energy. It's where this lies in your chart could relate to perhaps the bedroom or sexuality and sex and the body, and so that sort of thing. As I mentioned, Ian is Ian's Mars placement is in Pisces, which, again, it's a very intuitive, empathic sign. He may not be as like active, but there's an attentiveness and a connection there, right? Actually, let me see. Is Derek also a Pisces? Because I feel that's very much. Oh no, no, my husband is a Scorpio, so also water sign. Goodness gracious. So Derek is very intense and instinctual with okay, that's what it's
Rhoda.
Meanwhile, Erica and Rowena, we both have our Mars in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is another fire sign where it's all about adventure and spontaneity. And uh, Sagittarius is also about education and learning. So, like learning things or trying things or finding things or, just keep it, always bopping around. And there's like a lot of movement. Whereas our water boys here are just like kind of hanging out
They're
in
like along for the ride, I guess.
yeah, they're kind of just hanging out and like seeing what's what. And again, I think that's a really good balance, right? Because I'm trying to think. I don't know. I haven't pulled up the charts of. I don't even think I know the birth times of my exes, but like I think too much fire again is too much, right? If it's like
Hmm.
two people being like, "Rah!" I feel like that, again, having that nice balance, there can be moments of fire, but then there's also like a flow to it, and there can be a softness and also you know what I mean? There's like heat and also the flow. And I don't know. I think that keeps things interesting. We don't have to obviously get into nitty gritty of things, but I think it's nice to have some variety and to, especially, gosh, as parents, that's always so tough too. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Sounds about right. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's like if we're like fiery, like if our Mars is like fiery, then we have our nice like Pisces is the empath, right? Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's like we're not getting so
Yeah.
adventurous, so fiery that we're losing our partner. We still are
Yeah.
connected to them because of
Yes.
our emotional like empathy and tie to them. It's interesting to
Yes.
me.
Yes. That's true. That's true. It's not like, all right, see you later.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a connection there, which I think is really important. And so, yeah, I think having that Pisces to help out and that water to help out is good. Um, so, just to so let's switch gears a little bit. We talked about these planets, and according to Natalia Benson, who's one of my coaches that I've worked with, she talks about planets as the force of energy, right? So Venus is that force of love and relationship. Mars is that force of passion and sexuality and sex. And then the sign is how that planet is expressed. So as we talked about, with us having that that force of passion, it's expressed in a very adventurous, fiery Sagittarius way, right? So it's one way. I really liked how she broke that down. I think it's an interesting way to think about, the planets and the signs that we all have these different planets that have similar, you know, trajectories in terms of what these planets do for us, but based on what sign it's in, it can show up and manifest in different ways, as we saw with our water husbands and our fiery selves. So, switching gears now, let's talk about the houses. So, for those of you unfamiliar, when we talk about the houses in an astrological, and I keep doing this because like the astrological chart is the wheel, right? I know my like my gesturing. So the astrological chart is a wheel, and we think about, when we cut the wheel into the different pieces, right, of the pie, the different houses are the different parts of that pie. And depending on, and I already referenced this, right, depending on what house the planet is in, again, what sign it's in, that adds yet another layer, which is why astrology is so fascinating because you're always learning something, right? You can say that I'm a Pisces sun, but what house, right? So it's always so cool to just keep adding this nuance and layers, which by the way is why, I have friends who have said, well, I'm not a typical Cancer. Okay, cool, but like we need to look at like it's more than just that, right? You're probably not a typical Cancer because there's other things in your chart that play into who you are. So anyway, so when we look at the houses, the seventh house in particular is tied to partnerships, tied to marriage, tied to relationships. And what's interesting about the seventh house in particular is it's opposite of our first house. And the first house in astrology represents our sense of self. So it's like looking at our sense of selves, and the opposite of that is how we are looking at ourselves in the context of relationship. So, and how do we see ourselves in the context of other people's worlds? Um, so for me, I don't have any planets in the seventh house in my chart, but my seventh house is in Cancer. So, when it comes to partnership, emotional intelligence, nurturance, family, right? Um, and what's also fascinating is, and we'll talk about this with you and Ian, Erica, is that Derek is a Gemini Cancer cusp. So, again, that's also helpful to know, like, oh, well, your sign is this and mine is in this place, but maybe that's why we work well together. So because he has that Cancer, and now we know he also has Cancer in Venus, there's a connection there. So yeah, so maybe that's why, and that's why we have our beautiful family that we're growing. Which is so exciting. So, Erica, your seventh house, as we chatted about earlier, is in Pisces. So, you have that because your Venus is there. Your Venus is in the seventh house. So, your Venus in Pisces connection, in, intuition, empathy when it comes to relationships. What's also fascinating is that your North Node is also in the seventh house. And what does that mean? The North Node in astrology is essentially your karmic path. So you move from the South Node to the North Node. So like where are you headed in this particular lifetime? And the fact that for you, your North Node is in the seventh house demonstrates that you're looking for something outside of the material realm, right? Your goal in life is not to like make a ton of money or to have a bunch of crap. It really is
100%
in,
true.
yeah, so true. I know you. Like that's so true. It's in being of higher in a higher plane in terms of being in service with others, being
Yep.
in partnership with others, helping others, like that's more important to you. Like you really want, like your karmic path is to continue honing on your relationships and how you continue to serve and to grow because that Pisces is there, right? So how can you grow spiritually and emotionally, and how can you grow your inner knowing, your intuition through the relationships and the partnerships that you come across in your life. Does that
Oh
make
yeah,
more?
it's totally true. I mean, that's why like it took me such a long time to realize that I really enjoy doing it, but I've really
Yeah.
started making like teaching voice lessons and doing acting coaching and teaching
Yeah.
classes, especially to young people like high school and under.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the same thing from adults as well, but you know, kids are so much more receptive to that like
So,
to making that connection and like yes, like, it's very interesting to me because I used to feel really bad that I wasn't really, like, making a lot of money, and now,
yeah.
like, I mean, it's not like I'm making a ton of money, but I am getting paid to work with kids now, and, like but I am rich in that emotional stuff, like, what you
Yeah.
were saying, like, yes, it doesn't even matter to me, like, what the monetary amount is that's coming from that. Like, I care so much more and I am so much more driven by that, by those connections that
Love
I'm
that.
making and those like partnerships. And like, whenever I have a kid say, like, oh, yeah, like you're making me feel really good about this, or I feel good about working with you made me feel good about this. I'm like, yes, exactly. Like that to
Yes.
me, it it's the ultimate, it's the best. And I'm that same way with like people in general, right? Like
Yeah.
I really enjoy finding the or highlighting like the good things about people, right? Like if
Yes.
I
Yes.
can give someone a compliment, I just like thrive off of that.
I love that. No, and again, it's so true, and it it's similar to my experience, right? Because as I also have that Cancer, I have that water sign, and it's similar, right? That we beat ourselves up so much when perhaps we're not producing as much financially or what have you, but the richness of the work and the relationships, with you, Erica. I feel, we were friends when we started working together, but I feel we've deepened our connection through the work we did together and learning so much more about each other. That just feels good.
Yeah.
And yeah, like money's helpful, but it's not just about that. It really is doing more and going above and beyond capitalism. So I love it. That's so beautiful. Um, so Ian's seventh house is in Aquarius, which I thought was interesting because the sign that's in his seventh house is the moon. So his moon sign is in Aquarius, and as we know, you celebrated a birthday this couple weeks ago, and so your sun sign's in Aquarius. So this is what I was talking about, right? Like his moon sign is Aquarius, and your sun sign's Aquarius. So I think that's a really nice, in terms of your relationship, he gets you or you get him because
Yeah.
the moon sign is the one that not many people see. Like that's the intimate, only, your closest friends, your family, your loved ones
Okay.
see that moon. So because since he's in Aquarius and that, his moon is in Aquarius and your sun's in Aquarius, like there's an understanding there and a connection in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he would definitely agree that like I am his like like he does use me as like his one true like confidant. Like just what you just said,
Yeah.
like I'm the only one that like he'll open up to about like certain things or like I'm the
Yeah.
only one that he'll want to like tell me about. Yeah, so I guess it's that Aquarius connection that he feels that I was a safe zone for that. That's fascinating to me. I love that.
Well, and that's maybe why some folks, again, at first glance, because he's a Capricorn. So at first glance, and Capricorn is that mountain goat, very ambitious, blah, 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 right? So at first glance, a Capricorn and Aquarius, you're like, because again, you're very much an Aquarius embodiment, Erica, like very glow with the flow and outside of the box, like not really conventional. Whereas Capricorn is very structured. So
Yeah.
that's probably where people are like, I don't know. You guys are so opposite. But again, you have that Aquarius connection there that then there is an understanding. And similarly, and I'm so happy that I pulled up Derek's chart too. And I knew this already because I had brought it up to him before. Derek's moon sign is Pisces. And so very good, similar. My
Wow.
sun sign's a Pisces and his moon sign is a Pisces. So I joke with him all the time. That's why he gets me, even though, I may cry too much and I'm a little all over the place sometimes. And you know what I mean? And I could be over here and he's very much the Gemini, very structured, intellectual, rational. But again, he
Yes,
has
spreadsheets. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, spreadsheets,
If he can put it in a spreadsheet, he's
spreadsheets,
fine.
yeah, spreadsheets, data, that whole thing. I'm just like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Um, but that's why we have the connection, right? Because his moon sign, his most intimate self, his safe zone
Wow.
is also Pisces. So we're able to relate to each other and connect in that way. So I think that's so sweet that we have a similar situation going on with our partners. I think that's really cool. Um, so yeah, so as I mentioned, Ian's seventh house is in Aquarius. His moon is in Aquarius. As I mentioned, moon is that comfort, that stability, So for him, again, being in relationship, being at home, he's comforted by family, friendship, partnership. You know, Ian needs his people. Like that really is helpful for him and helps him feel safe and secure. So, I know that I feel, I'm not as close to him as I am to you, but I've really enjoyed, having his friendship. And uh random side story, he also gave me one of my IVF shots. So
Wait,
when my
I was
husband
a
was out
little
of
too
town.
I was a little too wishy-washy watery on that. I made you a little uncomfortable. You needed
Yeah,
that.
so yeah, my husband was out of town for work, and this is when I was in the middle of IVF trying to have the second kid, and yeah, I was like, Erica, you're too wishy washy. Come
But
here,
it
we
was
need this.
almost like I was like too it was like too much of that like empathy thing. Like I
Yes,
was like too much
you're freaking
thinking
out.
about I was thinking about you and like
Yes,
how is this gonna feel and like what is this doing to her body and whatever that
so
like it's
true.
like I didn't have that like
Yeah,
separation. I couldn't like separate
yeah.
myself and be like, okay, this is just an action. I need to like give this person a shot. I
See,
was just like,
next time I need to just look at y'all's charts. Then I would have
I
known from the
know.
jump. I was like, oh, she's got too much Pisces. It's not going to work. We need Capricorn Ian here to just give me my shot and like get over with.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's really, really funny. Um, so yeah, I mean those were the three areas I wanted to talk about today. Are there any particular anything else, Erica, that you're interested in knowing about when it comes to you or your relationship that I can just I have everyone's chart pulled up here, so we can take some time if needed, or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess like what I was thinking about is like if all if all of this stuff can be available, like it's interesting to me that like we don't use like as like us like as a whole, like as a
Yeah,
society, like as humans, like we don't use this more. Like and now I'm thinking to myself about like how many relationships don't work
yeah,
out, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like get divorced and you're like, "Oh, was that like in the chart or whatever?" Or like should they just have never been together in the first place?
Mhm.
Like it's interesting to me that like, you and
Yeah.
I are lucky. We feel like we're really set. We feel like we really
Mhm.
found people that we connect with and like
Yeah.
astrologically it looks good, but like
Yeah. You
was
know,
thinking about the other people who like
yeah, the other people, the
don't
four other
work
people.
out.
Listen, as I mentioned, Derek is like the stability that took what 30 plus like 30 years to get to. Um, I'm a firm believer that even in relationships, the challenges and things that don't work out are always something you can learn from it, right? Like I
Mhm.
think there are lessons. And yeah, maybe if we were more forthcoming and proactive about looking at charts, maybe it could, things could end sooner than they need to, or maybe you wouldn't proceed as needed. But I think even then, I don't know. As we talked about in the beginning and like my Mercury retrograde story, if anything, it gives me insight on like, okay, this could be a challenge and how can I work on it? And maybe it wouldn't like have blown up into like flames and a dumpster fire in my previous relationships. You know what I mean? If I had that
Yeah.
insight. But I mean, truth of the matter is, as we talked about, our husbands are like, okay, not really into it. There's people that aren't that aren't on board with this tool, and that's fine, right? Everyone does what they need to do to learn what they need to learn. But it is available, and
mean, astrology's been around for a long time. So I just hope that, if anything, our conversation today gives some more context and gives very specific examples, right? As you mentioned, some of the things you brought up, I didn't know about. There were some stories in there that we hadn't talked about before this conversation. So it just goes to show that, yeah, there are things in our charts that can be helpful moving forward. And even if seemingly on the surface we don't seem the same, if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll see that, we have some moon signs that are sun signs.
Yeah, 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 it really is. It really was
Yeah.
fun. It's really amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So before we wrap up today, why don't you tell folks, where can they find you? If you mentioned, that you work with children and you do coaching for acting and singing and whatnot. Yeah, where can the people find you?
That's so sweet of you. Okay, well, I am, I guess mostly through my website, which is
Okay.
May is spelled Mai, ericaMaymiller.com.
Okay,
I'm
hold on.
also
I'm gonna
are you
put
gonna
it
put it
here.
up? Yeah,
I'm gonna
Erica
put it
May
in.
Miller.
Erica May. Yep.
Yeah,
MAI.
yeah.
Right, Miller.com.
Yeah. Rowena helped me rebrand myself as
Yeah.
myself. There, perfect. Yes,
Yeah.
if you need any like coaching or, group classes or someone to play games with people at family reunions or parties where corporate events where you might have kids there, you need someone to lead the kids in some activities. Yeah.
Erica is wonderful with children. Pre-pandemic, we got to co-direct a children's show together. It was an amazing experience. It's really awesome seeing how good you are with kids. And I'm sure we can talk about this more offline, but now that my daughter started a new daycare, I might be able to like come to your classes in the future because we can drop her off
Oh,
anytime now. So I'm very excited. I brought that
oh
up to
my gosh.
Derek the other night. Yeah, that like we can maybe take a class with you or something like that in the morning before she goes to school.
Oh
So I'm
my
really
gosh. Oh my
excited.
gosh. That would be so fun.
My
Yeah.
little Pisces baby. Yeah, my daughter's a
I feel
Pisces
like
baby.
I see like kids like in TikTok videos all the time, and I'm always like, oh my God, this is Rowena's daughter. Like kids, like performing and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so gonna be Carrie.
Yes, I know. She is such a little performer. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to hop on here live with me. I know that Ian's with the kids right now, so please send my appreciation to him as well for taking care of the kids so that you could be on here today with minimal distractions. I
Yeah,
really
yeah, it
appreciate chatting
worked
with you.
out.
Yeah, it worked
Yeah,
out
this
really
was
well.
great. I definitely learned a lot. And like I told you before, like I was so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, like probably things are gonna come up. It's gonna make it look like Ian and I are incompatible and we shouldn't be together. And like the opposite happened. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. I guess it's nice for me to feel like, yeah, like that soulmate connection that I feel with him. There is like, things in our chart that really direct us together that way. It's amazing.
Yay. Yes. No, I'm glad. Listen, I use an empowerment astrology lens. We don't do any gloom and doom with the astrology readings that I do. Even if there are challenging aspects of the chart, there's always a way that we can overcome it and, learn from it. So, no, no, no. Where is it all? I know I had to reassure you like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. So, thank you again and thank you to folks watching. If you're interested in learning more, check out rowenawinkler.com. As you see in there, my Instagram handle's there as well. And then if you're interested in doing some moon practices, there is a new moon practice in Pisces coming up because we're getting into Pisces season on, what is it, President's Day on February 20th. I had to adjust the time. It was originally 11 a.m., but now it'll be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because I realized my kiddo doesn't have daycare that day. So I'm trying to coincide it with her nap so that she won't hop in here when we're trying to set our intentions for this new moon. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I hope you really enjoyed this class, this reading, this conversation with one of my amazing clients and one of my really, really dear good friends. So thank you all for watching. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone. Hey everyone, Dr. Rowena Winkler here. Thank you so much for your interest in this replay of the Passion and Partnerships Using Astrology Masterclass. I'm sure you could gather that Erica and I had a wonderful time diving deep into not only our charts, but also the charts of our partners. And that gave us some great insights on how we can better enhance our relationship so that they're in the most aligned deliciousness, right? So, since this is a replay, I wanted to provide a special offer just for you. So, if you're interested, I am giving away, a discount on any astrology reading when it comes to your natal chart. So, if you're looking for insights in terms of where things are looking with partnerships, with love, with romance, and that sort of thing, or if you're looking to do a compatibility chart similar to what I did with Erica live, just send me a DM to my Instagram account or to my Facebook account or wherever you have your social media. I'm more likely to be there too. All of my handles are RB Winkler Ph.D. And because we are in the thick of Venus retrograde, as I've released this replay, you just DM me with Venus RX reading, because Venus is the planet of love and relationships. And so, what better way to get more information on what this retrograde means for you than with a reading and looking at your astrology? So, if you would like to get 50% off on a reading in regards to your own love life or whether or not you and your partner are compatible. And as we saw with Erica, things could be surprising. Feel free to hit me up with that DM. And otherwise, I hope you got a lot out of the masterclass, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.